Tumbalana, Tumalana, Ra, Tumbalana, Tumalana, Tumalana. Tumalana, Tumalana, Ra, Tumalana, Tumalana, Tumalana. Tumalana, Tumalana, Ra, Tumalana, Tumalana, Tumalana. Tumalana, Tumalana, Ra, Tumalana, Tumalana, Tumalana. That's 012-382-493.6. For what? Call us now. 012-382-4936. That's 012-382-493.6. The station with the best music. Best music. I love music. Best music. Your station. Your music.
Search oh, this thing that's in nasty bonale. I and people, I never go to Lutano. This way, oh, my baby, is it big?
We have ignition. Strap in. You're about to listen to the hottest sound. In your face.
Put things in the air. What you say?
I need money, trees, and summer breeze. Lot of cheese, Louis V's and double G's. Overseas with tulip peas and Nazi bees. Black cars with credit limits that's guaranteed. Mine. I thank the Lord, all my brothers is all I need. Let's throw a party, my brothers, it's all on me. Follow me, it's all on me. Cause Ferraris and Lambos is all I see. Combination just landed from Italy. Continentals and Bimbas and VIP. It's all on me, it's all on me.
When the Ulfazing the knock, my effort finding neighbor. You're not in the sauce, he's spending the sub. Keep that jetty, you like that. He brushing on a show. Suspend your door. As the dance your door, my dead as a zoe mosh. When you must zoe door, so fucking zipia spawn. Sitting Malia born, but you don't zone dogs in Jalan get boss. Ya hamba so we are sass. Say, Mamba go Pumila. He can't be super. Loshun Sukakum. Ihlale mayiphetisa asuka sithanda inhlamba singeli suspecting inhlamba awubitombo wemishasha inkambi bakhatha nekhavela kadele imnyama sahostel ibhale malo likolme sebenze ngebizibhodlela spend ungasabi zosonde shaye kancane esikhobozela thula ngemali idokotela usaba lentomba bekhandlela lesubane ma yani oletha mikumbe andala mitumbe safuna ukudla inyama Any can go some tombe, many over I see the Mali so 17 Mali. I see the Mali so 17 Tshwane FM 93.6, Cap City's #1 radio station.
How are you, sir? Wayne Minaar. Hello? Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay. Are you ready for us, Tshwane FM? Okay, please stay on the line.
President of the vegan, not to like the robot without Hey, yellow, I didn't tell you to take a Tamara,
Capital Breakfast
on Tshwane FM.
Monday to Friday, 6 till 9 a.m. Hashtag rise to the morning. Call us now 010-382-4936. That's 012-382-4.
93.6.
"34 minutes have gone since the hour 6 o'clock, and it's a great evening to you. And thank you so much, man, for joining us. We are the Capital Talk. It's 2021, man. It's a new year. We're so excited. We're anticipating a lot of great things in our lives, and we hope that you too are really expecting great things that will be coming through your way this 2021. I know that 2020 has not necessarily been desirable for a number of people, but let's keep in hoping that 2021 will actually be a start of a great thing. We gave you something there by Big Zulu. It's Imali Ningi featuring Intaba Yasid, Dubai, and Ricky Rick. And before that, it was Simi with a song titled Emakaya featuring the couple. And we also just had, a number of great songs. Earlier on, we had Dumelana V by Mampezi and instrumental there, just giving you great music. In the background, that's Tata Rex Rabanye. Likewise, it's a song titled Unkitsang. 35 minutes have gone since the hour 6 o'clock. A number of things are trending on Twitter, and we'll be checking that. First of all, President Cyril Ramaphosa is topping the charts on Twitter, and also just on, we see as well, Mdlozi is actually, also trending there. And I see Close the Bait Bridge Border is also trending there. Teddy Mafia is also another big trend that is happening on Twitter there. We'll be checking in terms of what exactly is happening in that space. We are coming through to you live on Facebook. It is Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. Otherwise, check Mokete Radebe on Facebook and also on YouTube. That's exactly where we're coming through to you live. For the first segment of our discussion, we'll be speaking to Mr. Wayne Minaar as we speak, as we discuss, compliance on the South African rules. Just taking a look at how have we been during this festive season, and just looking at this period as well. I think one of the most interesting things that we discovered was the fact that for the first time, the Baragwanath hospitals, trauma wards were empty. And I think that's an interesting thing in my view, but we're going to sort of speak to Wayne to just advise us on that. Mr. Minaar, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with compliments into the new season. I hope that you had a wonderful one with your family and friends.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much. No, thanks. Also, compliments of the season to you and also to all the listeners so that they may have a very prosperous 2021.
Indeed. Let's speak about now the compliance on the roads. I think the last report that we had was that around 690 people died on the SA roads since December started, and that was earlier on when I spoke to you. But ever since, we haven't actually really had any negative reports in terms of what is happening on the roads. But you have been there, you hold all the cards. If you can just take us through, how has compliance been on the South African roads?
I must say, on New Year's Eve, the traffic was more quiet in Johannesburg by 9 p.m. compared to other years on New Year's Eve.
Sure.
There were many roadblocks, and all those roadblocks were integrated, consisting of SAPS, Gauteng Traffic Police, and JMPD. There were a few people who were arrested for possession and transporting of liquor in their cars, and then there were more than 18 drunken drivers who were arrested, but by and large it was quiet, and then some people were arrested for ignoring of the curfew that was for being outside their place of residence after 9 p.m. So it's been quiet. Really, it's been quiet in Johannesburg since lockdown level 3 was introduced, and we're encouraging all the motorists coming back home still. There are still some travelers who went to home to visit or who went on holiday who still have to return to Johannesburg to be cautious and not to speed and obey all the road traffic regulations.
Interesting. 38 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, Mr. Wayne Minaar speaking to us on the road. And just looking at now the implementation of the curfew, especially between 6 and 9, how has it impacted, road fatalities and compliance on the roads? Do you think it has had a significant impact with regards to that?
Yes, without a doubt. We have now fewer cars traveling late at night. So this has also seen a reduction in accidents and deaths. The Minister of Transport will release the statistics at the end of the festive season, but if we look at the operations that was conducted and we look at the number of offenders, it is fewer. It was definitely less this year as compared to other years.
Sure, 39 after 6 o'clock. Listening to you now at this point in time, I'm a motorist and I'm on the road. What are some of the things that perhaps we might necessarily or that we might have to be mindful of? I know that the festive season is done, but I know that there's just so many other things that we need to be mindful of on the roads. If you can just address or advise our listener at home at this point in time in terms of what is expected of them on the roads post this festive season.
Yes, very importantly, if you need to undertake a long trip, to do pre-trip inspection. So the tires of the vehicle must work, the lights, the braking system must be in a good working order, the steering column must be in a proper function and also good working order. Then we come to driver behavior. Because more than 90% of accidents is attributed to driver behavior. Drivers should not be reckless. Drivers should be patient when they're driving, to drive in the speed limit. And also, if they will be having whatever celebration or function at home, not to drink alcohol and then drive, because it affects the judgment of the driver. Alcohol, it affects the vision of the driver, so there's the possibility of accidents. And then also, when they're driving, especially at night, look out for pedestrians, because there's the possibility of a pedestrian who may have consumed alcohol will want to cross the road, and when a pedestrian gets bumped, usually the injury which pedestrians get is very serious or fatal. And then we want to urge everyone to comply with the COVID-19 regulations, to remember the importance of wearing a mask at all times when they're out in public, and then also to remember the curfew time, to remember that the transport or possession of alcohol at any point now, at this point, as we are in level 3 lockdown, is illegal. So don't take a chance, because we still have got a lot of operations. The integrated operations are continuing, and these operations are done by the SAPS, the JPD, Gauteng Traffic Police, and National Traffic Police. We do it together so that we have enough manpower when we conduct the operations.
42 after 6 o'clock. That is Mr. Wayne Minaar speaking to us at this point in time. Wayne, thank you so much for always availing your time to come and talk to us. We appreciate your assistance at all times. We wish you all the best with the department in managing our roads at this busy times.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesomeness. 43 after 6. That is Mr. Wayne Minaar is coming to us all the way from the roads management agency, just speaking to us really about the number of things that have been happening in that space. And I think kudos to all the motorists and citizens of the country that have actually, observed all the regulations that are being imposed upon us. We're going to go back to the music and also just the news that are making headlines. And before we get into the music, maybe let's just give you an update in terms of what's happening in the news at this point in time. Now, the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, FITA, has slammed government's decision to appeal the Western Cape High Court ruling, which found that the 5-month ban of the sale of tobacco products was unconstitutional. The government just today filed court papers setting clear its intention to apply for leave to appeal in the Supreme Court of Appeal. The case in question was lodged by cigarette manufacturer British American Tobacco and others, and judgment was handed down last month. And FITA has raised questions over government's intentions given its continued pursuit of the matter through the appeal court. Now, the organization said it found the appeal regrettable and further expressed concern that this could be a signal that another cigarette sales ban could be on the cards. The appeal process suspends the effectiveness of the judgment, which found in favor of cigarettes and tobacco products manufacturers until the point when the courts have dealt with it thoroughly. And now the FITA chairperson, that's in Nhlanhla Mnguni, said that many legal challenges that government has had to defend during the lockdown mean it has spent a substantial amount of fund and other resources to fighting unnecessary legal battles instead of utilizing those resources to combat the spread of COVID-19. Among government's criticism of the ruling, it states in its appeal papers rather, that the court was wrong to find that the minister responsible for regulations failed to show that the violation of the constitutional court's rights of smokers was justified, but government has stuck to its reasoning for banning the sale of tobacco products last year and stating that the temporary action was in the best interest of South Africans. And among the arguments advanced in the appeal application is that the court was not consistent in its approach to expert evidence. And it said, well, the court accepted the evidence of experts by the applicants. Despite their lack of requisite qualifications, less weight was placed on evidence provided by the specialists. It's gloves off. Egypt said that it opened an investigation into the deaths of 4 COVID-19 patients in an intensive care unit allegedly due to lack of oxygen. That is amid a public outcry. Now, the prosecutor's office in Al Husseina in the northern Sharqiya province summoned the director of Al Husseina Hospital to question him over the deaths of 4 people due to lack of oxygen, and a judicial source told the AFP without specifying the dates of the deaths. Lawyers for the Enoch Mpianzi's family said they were determined to fight for the family to have their 20 million in compensation. They are suing the Gauteng Department of Education for their son's death, and next week will mark a year since the 14-year-old drowned in the Crocodile River at the Nyati Bush and Riverbank Lodge, that is in Brest, during an orientation camp arranged by his school, Parktown Boys High. Now, in court papers filed in December, the department acknowledged that it's responsible for the conduct of the school. Its governing body and principal can be held liable. 2020 was a painful year for Mpianzi's family, who are still waiting for justice almost a year after the tragedy. They are suing the state for 20 million in compensation for both his parents, but the state is only offering 700,000. Sure, the family's lawyer, Ian Levitt, said it was still a long journey ahead to get what they need, and they know that the department knows that they were going to fight, this until the end, and this must set the precedent in future that other schools must, heads of department and principals are cautioned. Sure, hectic. In case you forgot, Mpianzi drowned on a Wednesday, but his body was only discovered on a Friday after his peers started looking for him. That was in March last year, when an independent report found that there were no life jackets available for the children who had to build their own and makeshift rafts. Terrible story, I must say. The Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mbuyane today said the province would be ready and capable to roll out a COVID-19 vaccine when one for the country becomes available. On Sunday, Health Minister Wayne Minaar said over 67% of the South African population would be targeted in a phased rollout of the country's COVID-19 vaccine, and that is beginning with health workers, followed by the elderly and those with commodities. Mbuyane has given an update on the province's response to the pandemic, saying all districts have shown a decline in the number of infections. The Cape government official said the province was bouncing back after being gripped by the COVID-19 second wave. Sure, hectic. Some travelers will have spent 3 days without food or water in queues on the way to the Lebombo border with Mozambique are beginning to return to Maputo, and some may miss deadlines to return to work. Many thought they could use their negative COVID-19 certificates that were initially accepted for 14 days, but they are now required to be less than 72 hours old, and this has caused congestion at the few open land borders, and hundreds of non-citizens are being turned away. Carrying Ngumalo got on a bus to South Africa from Maputo on Sunday. It stopped in a queue in the middle of nowhere around 3 p.m. The same day. From then to Tuesday, it has moved about 2 kilometers. Yeah, no, it's hectic. It's hectic. In other news, Parliament's Health Portfolio Committee has implored the Department's Health to assess the COVID-19 vaccine earlier than scheduled. Now, the committee's main concern about the government's vaccine rollout following Minister Wayne Minaar's announcement on Sunday, after mounting worries that the country is lagging behind when it comes to obtaining the jab. And Minaar assured the public that bilateral talks have begun with pharmaceutical companies with the hope that some supplies will arrive by next month. Minaar said that more than 4 million South Africans were targeted to receive the COVID-19 vaccine by the end of the year. Opposition parties and unions are not the only ones to raise concern about the timeframes for the vaccine rollout, but several countries around the world and on the continent have already started vaccinating, with questions now being raised about when South Africa will start the process. Yeah, a very busy one. But of course, I will now jumping into what people are saying on Twitter. I'll start with Cyril Ramaphosa, and Cooperative Governance and International Affairs Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, together with President Cyril Ramaphosa, are not backing down on the tobacco fight. But furthermore, it appears as though that the government's National Coronavirus Command Council is expected to meet tomorrow morning, setting the stage for yet another announcement on the COVID-19 lockdown from President Cyril Ramaphosa by the end of the week. Still on President Cyril Ramaphosa trending, let's be honest with one another. President Cyril Ramaphosa has failed us as a country. Even now, I'm still saying Zuma would have done better in fighting this corona. This one is by Sibahle Mblose. And Kolani Ngobo says President Cyril Ramaphosa will obviously address us tomorrow. Get your cigarette, guys, before it's too late. Also, sure, yeah, hectic. What's happening on Twitter here? Let's move to the hashtag Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And Mbuyiseni Ndlozi says that the hashtag close Bay Bridge border hashtag must be rejected with all contempt it deserves. Let our people in. They are part of us. They live here. They have been living here for centuries. And closing the border is inhumane and will breed the worst humanitarian crisis than COVID-19. And Pumi says, Lord, we told you South Africans that EFF ground forces are stuck at the Bay Bridge and they are complaining to Ndlozi and the EFF South Africa. And and he says they are part of us, but they went home in Zimbabwe. She lost. I think she's referring this to Ndlozi. And Miss B20 says Ndlozi is mentally sick, while Njabule praiseworthy Memela says Ndlozi has lost his mind like for real. While Jolo the Pandemic says Mbuyiseni Ndlozi wants these people to come into the country, guys. We're going nowhere with people like him. EFF, kiss my vote, goodbye. Cellular says, Mara Dr. Ndlozi, why you like this, Mara? Okay, it's fine. We open for them to come in illegally, then what happens? Crime will grow, poverty will grow, jobs will be lost. Dr. Ndlozi, we must fight for Africa at our own countries, not in South Africa, please. And just there as well, that EFF's Mbuyiseni Ndlozi says he doesn't trust Bill Gates, whose foundation has donated millions to coronavirus vaccine and treatment research. And Alunamda says someone who was unknowingly harping about how Zuma is a constitutional delinquent and how he doesn't respect the rule of law is now advocating for the disregard of the same constitution and law. Ndlozi, amazing. Metro News says, okay, yeah, just so many things that are happening there. I'm keen to hear your views with regards to all these things that are happening on Twitter. I mean, the vaccine is among the many other things, and we'll be speaking about it, I think, just tomorrow and on the flip side of this with Professor Barry Hanyane. But there's just been so much being said about it. But also the Bay Bridge border, it's been a long-standing discussion. What do you guys make of that? How Lekane says, so Zimbabweans are coming back to South Africa to work while South Africans are unemployed. Hashtag close the Bay Bridge border. That's another trending topic there. And also the hashtag Teddy Mafia. Now, Chatsworth community members brutally killed and banned 2 people beyond recognition, and they took the gun that was going to be used in an investigation in the matter of Teddy Mafia. And all that happened in front of the SA Police Services and eThekwini Metro Police. This one is by Eugene Terreblanche, an account of Eugene Terreblanche. And Kayam Thongo says, when drug pin was killed yesterday, Teddy Mafia, I think it's just, a footage there of, when this, alleged drug dealer, as many people are saying he was a drug dealer when it happened. And I see there's just bodies of people there on the floor. It seems as if, it's just a big story. So Jay Mute, this Teddy Mafia story is wild. Trevor lied to us about Indian guests. And Sunday Colin says it ain't funny how alleged known drug kingpin like Teddy Mafia were or are outside jail, but when a Begikele will throw you in jail for one savannah and not being home at 9 p.m. Sure. I'm shocked to find that Indians are gangster like Bapila is nigger, Sase Kemton. Teddy Mafia story is so weird. Gents, I think that's just pictures of this alleged guy who, and there's just a picture that says RIP Mafia, you're a legend. This war ain't over. Sure, yeah. And Mr. Washington says here, I won't be picking a fight with an Indian from Chatsworth anytime soon. and I'm a guy from Imlas, and I've seen it all. But this Teddy Mafia story has me smoked. The West in Durban, from witchcraft to drug dealings, fear them. Yeah, hectic as well. I'm just keen on to just hearing what you make of these stories. Do you know if anything else happening in that regard? And do you want to jump in? I see comments there. There's Shabile Muhala, Husane boy. Thank you so much for that comment, my brother there. And just reading some of your comments before we go to the top of the hour. But I think so long we'll be jumping into more music. And just taking it easy as we jump into this 2021. Great music indeed that you must expect. And this one is by Enontabe Zgote. It's titled Kola Moya Wami. Good evening, Tshwane.
Phezulu konakele umhlaba ungehlule imali ayikho lula somama yasibonakele njengothela yakhe ngaphezulu konakele umhlaba ungehlule imali ayikho lula. Moya fisa ukwenza kahle umhlaba ungehlule moya fisa ukwenza kahle imali ayikho lula kola moya wami kola moya wami umhlaba ungehlule imali ayikho lula somama yasibonakele njengothela yakhe ngaphezulu konakele umhlaba ungehlule imali ayikho lula. Moya fisa ukwenza kahle umhlaba ungehlule moya fisa ukwenza kahle imali ayikho lula kola moya wami kola moya wami kola moya wami
Professor. Ninja Prof. Yeah, man. It's Mokete Tshwane FM. Okay, please stay on the line for us.
Tshwane FM 93.6.
Hey, Peter, check it out, y'all, right now.
93.6.
You know, some of the churches, they don't need your qualification. They have nothing to do with your education, Vujisha. Vujisha. Boy, since it was 1909, 1910, long before I was born, Saulo, got 1916, Vujisha. Oleseala. Got 1928. Ahole. Oleseala. Mandela ba motshwara e ba boya. Saulo Oleseala. Manibele ke 2015. Ba tshaba le yopela ba e hama. Raba Saulo.
The best.
Tshwane FM 93.6.
It's 3 minutes after 7 o'clock, and thank you so much for joining us. If you just jumped in, this is the Capital Talk. We're with you every Monday till Thursday between the hours 6 and 8 p.m. And just earlier on, we're speaking to Mr. Wayne Minaar about compliance and the routes and how the curfew between 6 and 9 has actually helped to reduce the fatalities on the roads. And just looking at as well the number of things that are actually working for us as South Africans in 2021. I mean, also the reduction of alcohol. I think that also appears to have actually worked tremendously to reduce a lot of cases in terms of people, black-shaming one another. 3 minutes have gone since the hour 7 o'clock. A big one as well. The Labour Appeal Court has dismissed an application from public sector unions challenging government's decision to renege on paying salary increases for the final year of a 3-year wage deal. Now, the hearing was held I think it was just last month, around November, when the hearing was actually held. And, and judges Dennis Davis, Violet Paswan, and Philip Coppin delivered the judgment to also, indicate that government took the decision as part of a plan to slash the state's wage bill by at least 160 billion over the next 3 years. Implementing this year's wage agreement would require government to cough up around 37 billion to pay civil servants. The collective agreement struck between the Public Servants Coordinated Bargaining Council and government back in 2018 had been implemented for 3 years, 2018-19 and 2019-20. Earlier this year, earlier in 2020, the day before the February 2020 budget was tabled, government had requested that the agreement be reviewed as its costs were unaffordable rather. But unions, however, lodged an application for the enforcement of a clause in the agreement, which would see government fulfill the final year of the wage deal. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni then filed a counter application to have the enforcement of the clause declared unlawful, invalid, and unenforceable. The judgment read, the court considered Regulations 78 and 79 of Public Service Regulations under the Public Servant Act, and together they impose certain requirements for the conclusion of a collective agreement by the state. One of the conversation, especially in the social media space, was among other things that government was saying was that the economy has been growing slowly, and it doesn't, it doesn't indicate any promise of it growing, and therefore the reduction in salary increment, would be another better option that they thought of. But others are arguing that the growth of the economy is in the hands of the consumer. So if you disarm the consumers, then it will affect spending patterns. But there's all those different theories, and hence we brought in those that are in the know-how in terms of these economic things. And Professor Bonke Dumisa is no stranger to the show. We've had him last year, and he's going to be talking to us at this point in time. Professor, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Compliments to the new season.
Compliments of the season to you and your Tshwane FM listeners.
Ungene kanjani Prof? Uyitye kanjani festive season?
Siyitye kabuhlungu i-festive season, singakwazi ukushaya izinto ey'babayo nezinto ezenza umsindo. Kodwa-ke that was the name of the game, and singene kahle ku-2021 and back to reality to face the economic realities of South Africa, which we are all committed to face head on.
Indeed. And look, I must say this was a different one. But here's a burning issue here, and I think your expertise are going to help us here. This is the case between the state and labor unions, and on whether it was justified for the courts to allow the state to win on this one or not is another issue. But what remains outstanding for me is some of these discussions around the growth of the economy. And maybe I would like us to perhaps touch on the ruling on itself. What do you make of the ruling before we speak about the growth of the economy?
Okay, many of us, including myself,
yes,
were very optimistic that this was going to be the kind of a ruling. And let me clarify it to your listeners. The trade unions, after they lost that urgent application, and the court simply said this is not urgent as such, they were saying this is it was a moral persuasion thing that the court addressed itself to. But what they wanted, they were talking about the legal reasoning and the legal persuasion that a deal is a deal, a contract is a contract. However, where the trade unions really missed it, deliberate, not that they did not know this one, or that when the house has been destroyed and you say a deal is a deal, the house owner had promised to give you his lounge suite. The house owner cannot deliver that lounge suite because the house has been burned down. So trying to separate and saying the courts were leaning more on the moral things was wrong on their part. I know that many people kept on talking about the whole issue of the contractual term of force majeure, which simply means that things were beyond the control of the state. Yes, that applies as well, but it was mostly that the state does not have money. And as I said to you in the past at our last interview, that for every R1 that the South African government spends as it is now, at least 21 cents thereof is spent on just paying for interest alone, not the principal on the state loans that are there. And already we are talking about the government owing over 3.5 trillion rand. Our budget is not even 2 trillion rand, but the state is already owing over 3.5 trillion rand. So how do you justify then paying a salary increase when you are already that indebted? And to make it worse, and that's why this is where the moral persuasion thing came in. Most South Africans were not earning even a cent during the very hard lockdown. And the public servants were lucky enough that every public servant during the hard lockdown was paid in full. In fact, they've not lost a cent just because of COVID. And yet the majority, because when I'm talking about the majority of the taxpayers are in the private sector. Most of the private sector workers had to forego a lot of money. It was called salary sacrifices. They had to lose a lot of money. And because of that, the SARS predictions were that they were going to be under target to the tune of over 52 billion rand.
Sure.
So you've already lost out a lot on your projected revenue. How can you afford then to pay salary increases to people? And we're talking about 2% of the South African population who account for over 65% of the government coffers. How do you afford to give them salary increases under those circumstances? So those were the very valid legal reasons for arriving at the decision that the court reached. And it is a morally valid and a legally valid thing. I think I need not say more on this. We need to focus now on what next.
Interesting. 12 minutes after 7 o'clock. Tshwane FM 93.6 is exactly where we are at this point in time. And we're speaking to Professor Bonke here, speaking to us at this point in time. Prof, you've clarified the court case. Let's jump into the growth of the economy. There's a view that disarming the consumers, it's actually a disadvantage to the growth of the economy. How justifiable? How informed is that view? In economical terms.
The problem we have in South Africa is that while South Africans are well informed, maybe, about the politics of the country, when it comes to the economy, they are so underinformed. And because of that, you've got many people who actually deliberately mislead them. When you read Facebook and WhatsApp posts, there's a lot of disinformation about the South African economy. But the bottom line about that underinformation or misinformation is that most South Africans do not put a connect between what goes into the state in terms of revenue, income, via SARS in most cases, and what the employees get outside there. There's a disconnect. It's as if a lot of money comes into SARS and into the government coffers, which can fund almost everything. But people cannot tell you where that money comes from. It's as if we've got a very large tax base, and yet reality is that you've got less than 15% of people in South Africa paying the personal income tax. And when you look clearly and even closer, you find then that we're actually talking about less than 8 million people paying personal income taxes. And so where does this money come from to fund all these things that we are demanding? Because we don't even ask, we demand free of charge. That is where the disconnect is. And until we address that disconnect, we will keep on seeing South Africa suffering and going down, because people do not see a connection between what they do as individuals, which pulls down the economy, and then, but they will always see what will I get out of that? We must change that one. And the reason why this is important is because if we don't address that one, we are not going to turn around this economy. It will be all the way down. And I am saying, for us to come out of this, then let us all say, what will I do to pull up this economy? Because this economy has been really going down and down and down. And some people may cite the third quarter of 2020 and say, but we saw some increase in the economic growth, and the answer is there was no actual increase in the economic growth rate in the third quarter. What was simply happening was we're moving from extremely negative economic growth rate, then saying, okay, now we're trying to climb up to try and pull back. But last year was really bad, and that's why we have had the final economic growth rate for last year to be negative in the region of about -7 to -8%, and that is bad by any standard.
Sure. 17 after 7 o'clock. Tshwane FM 93.6 is where you at this point in time. Tough times are definitely, looming if we are not to, use our minds in this regard. If we are not to really, focus on the bigger picture. Your advice to South Africans that are listening at this point in time, and even opinion leaders in different spaces.
When we're talking about the bigger picture, I'm happy that you have raised that point about the bigger picture. I am saying to South Africans, we can come out of this, but there are certain fundamentals we've got to address. I know that people have been complaining about the increasing unemployment rate in South Africa. We will not sort that one out in any way before we understand then that what we have in South Africa, when I talk about the unemployment rate, is that we've got a structural unemployment rate challenge. What do I mean by that? Our education system is bad. It does not deliver the needs of the economy. So our education system, whilst we are busy talking about what are the different parts of the equality, which spend a lot of time at school doing at primary school, etc. The kids in Japan, South Korea, Germany, and other countries at that level, they're already learning how to do certain statistical formulae and to assemble some toy cars, etc., learning how to use technology. So we need to change this education system, move from the road system where abantu bekrema and memorizing things to problem solving from the beginning. Until we do that thing, we cannot do anything. But one thing I can say is we have seen countries going down, and down. And when people start working together, they are able to save that country from calamity. And I believe in South Africans. Once South Africans we defeated apartheid. So if we defeated apartheid under those circumstances, even now, when we start, let's not be misled by politicians. Politicians will always tell you that we will give you this and this free, and they give themselves many free things. They never care about really how do we grow this economy. So let the private sector and the ordinary South African lead the way to say, we are going to rebuild this economy. This is what I'm going to do. Because my worry is if we don't address that, then we'll keep on saying, what is the government doing about the unemployment rate?
Sure.
Let each and every one of us ask themselves, what is it that I can do differently now that you've suffered COVID, in order to make myself more productive economy?
20 after 7 o'clock. Wise words indeed from Prof Bonke speaking to us at this point in time. Prof Nyagegela Manch. Any closing remarks for the listener at home?
No. What I just want to say is, I wish South Africans a very successful 2021. I wanted to say, I'm a South Africans acapella manga. Then I remembered that was the team I used to support, and it's always losing Amanda. So I no longer use it. I simply say let's have a positive story.
And they were because of Mkhalakanye now.
Thank you, bye.
But this year we are the only team that has not lost anything.
Because we have not won anything.
Prof, have a lovely evening. Thank you so much. 21 minutes after 7 o'clock. Hey, yeah, Prof, I'm going to put some Yeah, it's important for us to sort of listen to some of these pointers before we can actually start jumping into some of the decisions. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we speak to Professor Barry Hanyane.
One thing I've realized, if a Zulu guy has to explain to you, he will make sure that you understand every line. But Umbedi, he wants you to read between the lines. He doesn't care whether you understand or not. Because if a Zulu guy was beating someone, who's not telling us, yeah, for it. What you are going to call no shamans? I'm a two tail. I'm Shansa no dog. I'm challenging. What will the pants? I'm fools. I'm Shansa no dog. I'm challenging. Balamulo ma kiganti busy line. But the petty guy, can you listen to what I'm
The best. Tshwane FM 93.6.
Professor, how are you, sir? Could imagine. Are you ready for us?
Mafuta ke a ratela hore banna ba teng ba go mafusong ba re rekela bjana ebile ba re fusa pila utsaka.
Tshwane FM, the mother of all radio stations.
2:06 after 7 o'clock. Tshwane FM 93.6 is exactly where we are. Still continuing the lovely conversations that we're having today, man. And I see that we're looking at a number of things, man. And see some of the comments as well. Emmanuel Tapelo Tapawe, hi, I'm Tapelo Emmanuel Sishongwe. I'm from Matchville, I think. Okay, you think, Tapelo. Thank you so much for joining us there. And, just earlier on, that was Prof. Bonke Dumisa speaking to us as an economist, and earlier on Wayne Minaar speaking to us as well. We're now in the capable hands of Professor Barry Hanyane as we discuss, a number of things. One, the growth of the economy and how the state has actually, and it's a big victory. The government does not have to pay out increases to public sector workers after the Labour Appeal Court handed it a huge win by declaring the implementation of a disputed agreement unlawful. Earlier in December, the Labour Appeal Court heard arguments in the matter in which public sector unions sought to have the final leg of a multi-year wage agreement implemented. But the court case came about after the state refused to implement the final year of the agreement, as it does not have the money to do so, and the state had penciled in huge cuts to the public sector wage bill in February, and a refusal to pay the increase, putting the government on the warpath with unions. And now SATU General Secretary Mokoena Maruleke, who speaks on behalf of Union Federation COSATU Unions, was quoted in the Financial Mail as saying that unions are studying the judgment, have already noted the constitutional problems in the ruling, which have left members shocked and angry. But yeah, I think in a nutshell, the public servants are any increase in the next in the last year of that 3-year agreement. Professor Barry Hanyane is here with us. We're looking at the political impact of this. Local government elections are coming through. Is this the right time for the state to be, poking them at this point in time? Professor, compliments into the new year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mr. Radebe, very good evening to you. Good evening to your listeners as well. Well, here we are trying to make sense of the new world order in the midst of COVID-19, the restrictions thereof, and of course, trying to apply the protocols concomitant with that. So it's a struggle, it's a daily struggle, but we're embracing it.
Interesting. Tabakitse, how do we move from here? Do you think this is what needs to be celebrated? Do you foresee any danger?
You mean in relation to
this court case here, the state and the labor laws? Yeah. Obviously, the state winning it.
Look, I think it will be slightly protracted, given the fact that one party is not satisfied with the judgment, obviously the unions. I think government will pursue, and given the resolutions to the House, the issue of trimming down the wage bill. I mean, I know for a fact that the President and the Cabinet are eager to see some measure of control when it comes to these matters. What worries me the most are the challenges that are already there. For instance, it would be nice to get a fresh report on what happened to your ghost employees in the public sector. Remember, just before the former Premier of the Northwest Province, Mr. Supra Mahoma Pelu, left office, there was an identified cases of about 34,000 ghost employees in the province. This, for me, is a worrying factor. If it's not tackled as early as now, and to look at the overall public service, then we're in for serious problems. But then again, one needs to appreciate the fact that government doesn't have enough spending leverage when it comes to the issue of public expenditure in totality. The chief instigator there is obviously the salaries. So if there's no cut in salaries and overall expenditure, especially the wasteful part, we are likely to go back to the drawing board if needs be,
And my biggest fear is that we may have to go to the open markets globally to look for money in order to finance the fiscals. And that's one thing that we should avoid. Already we have committed ourselves to the COVID loan, which, by the way, the liability thereof will have to be transferred to the taxpayer. And this is one thing that we don't want to see if, of course, we have to grow the economy and make sure that we create jobs and are able to provide for basic services, including services for the poor.
Sure. A tough one. I was speaking to Professor Bonke now and looking at the various views and debates on social media where others felt largely the decision is it's informed by the lack of growth in the economy or the slow growth in the economy, and disarming consumers is not necessarily a viable or a justifiable option, because others felt that if you kill in the increase in terms of salaries, you are disarming consumers who are meant to increase the economy. Is that a sound view, so to say?
There's more to that. Of course, that's part of the narrative, that's part of the argument. My biggest concern is your government debt as well. Where are we sitting at? The last time I checked, your debt to government expenditure ratio was sitting around, hovering around the 70%. That is not right. We should bring that at least half of that mark and make sure that government has money available, especially when it comes to unforeseen expenditure. I mean, here we are. We had to go to the open market to look for COVID money, and at the same time, this was not properly spent, at least a portion of it. Now we know. These are some of the things that we need to take care of. I mean, just because we are not necessarily a country that is disaster prone by the issue of COVID-19, it doesn't mean that we don't have liabilities and challenges elsewhere when it comes to issues of government expenditure. I'd like to see enough money through subsidy, if needs be, being granted to emerging black farmers. I'd like to see the youth getting programs on board to put them in employment initiatives. I'd like to see more money being given to the frail and the elderly. So the huge government mandate needs to be funded. And in order to be funded well, surely money must be made available in the fiscals. And one way to do so is to make sure that there is fiscal discipline. And of course, we are able to cap on wasteful expenditure across the board in the public service as well as the public sector. If we fail to do this, I'm afraid the taxpayer will have to bear the burden.
34 after 7 o'clock. Tshwane FM 93.6. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I'm checking some of your comments. I'm checking some of your views with regards to the conversations that we're having at this point in time. And of course, we're looking at this point in time, the case, between the state and, labor union. But that's not the only thing that we're discussing with Prof Barry Hanyane tonight. We're looking at a number of things as well, Prof. I mean, at this point in time, look, the December issues, Prof. Alcohol was closed, less, fatalities on the road. What do you make of that?
Well, look, it speaks to societal discipline, really. It's quite interesting without necessarily going through commissioning organizations such as the HSRC and universities by and large that are interested in this area of conducting research as to what are the societal challenges in the modern South Africa. Here we are, a shutdown of the taps. What do you get? You get first of its kind reports coming from Tshwane Hospital, the third largest in the world, and of course the largest in the continent, let alone the Southern Hemisphere, telling us that for the first time in the history of that hospital, at least in the last 30 years, no fatalities, no serious trauma cases were reported. And talking of that report coming from, as I said, one of the largest hospitals in the continent, surely you begin to understand the ripple effect of from Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and other provinces. That obviously would then give impetus to the argument that the biggest sin that humankind, especially South African citizens en masse, that they have been committing, at least in the last decades or so, is to celebrate and consume alcohol, and in the end, which will lead to socio-somatic behavior that may very well put lives in danger and even lead to fatalities. This is a proven point, but I would like to see more research conducted in this area to confirm the hypothetical thinking. At this point in time, it's very convenient for us to say, look, the shutdown on liquor contributed positively, but do we have scientific evidence to back up all these assumptions made, which, by the way, should be welcomed, and we should say, can we use this to drum the message home to our South Africans, especially those who consume liquor, that when it is done in a responsible way, it actually saves government money, it actually puts less pressure on our health system, and in the end, it actually saves lives.
37 after 7. Tshwane FM 93.6. This is where we are. Let's jump into the VC. There's a lot of, I know that you're not a health specialist, Prof, but you are a voice of reasoning. There's a lot of fear.
By a nurse, so
yeah. So by birth, you are there. There's a lot of, information in the grapevine. What do you make of it?
You mean in relation to COVID-19?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the vaccine. First of all, how are we responding to it?
In private conversations, some things should actually become a motivation to actually read more and learn more. And of course, give space to those who are experts in the field. I mean, I'm happy that you guys in the media space know the experts who work, for instance, in South Africa's Communicable Disease Center, who from time to time can give us information. For instance, one would be interested to read more about the so-called South African strain, which has got the whole world talking, let alone the UK strain as well. Already there are talks that the South African strain may present challenges from a health point of view on a global scale, in that vaccines may not, and please underline, may not work effectively. We don't know that, but it's best to give those who are in the world of virology to assist us, to make us aware and understand how viruses work, how this pandemic, for instance, is likely to go. We're beginning to read about the third stage, the fourth stage coming as well. Whether these stages are going to be severe or not, we need to read about that. What is quite interesting is that there is a narrative that's being advanced out there, I think somewhat in a very irresponsible way, that alludes to the fact that your 5G technology is actually behind the pandemic. There is no virus out there. All of these talks need to find expression through right channels of science. The minute we ignore science, that's when we allow misinformation, noted at a time where we acknowledge that we are likely to be operating in a paradigm that is known as the post-truth space. But then we cannot allow fake news to influence decisions, to influence awareness, and by and large, to taint the body of knowledge that thus far has been accumulated, all aimed at saving humanity and making sure that we're able to respond to this pandemic in a more scientific way.
40 after 7 o'clock. Tshwane FM 93.6. Yeah, this is where we are about to leave it. Delays in the vaccine. Does it make sense for you, Prof?
What about the referendum? I didn't hear that.
Delays in the vaccine.
I'm I'm not sure if I hear you well.
Okay, so there's the vaccine when it comes to South Africa has been delayed, and the reasons are not necessarily tangible. Do you make sense of them?
Yeah, look, I think we must appreciate the fact that this is a global phenomenon. I mean, I was watching a report now that suggests that the European Union is also facing some of the problems that we are facing. And I've been reading comments from prominent South Africans in the political space with suggestions that if we do not once again promote your public-private partnership approach, we are likely to land ourselves in serious challenges and difficulties that may taint the issue of the distribution of vaccines. I think if we can sit back and study the proposed strategy by the health department, this might add value overall to the policy approach as well as the implementation approach of the vaccination of South Africans. It's interesting to note as well that the main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, has written to the Speaker of Parliament, Mokete Radebe, requesting an urgent debate around this issue, which I think it's quite good. If the National Assembly could meet, observing obviously the protocol standards, it will be interesting to see what kind of policy issues will be vented out, obviously aimed at ensuring issues of access, respect to human rights. Remember, there are some individuals already who are suggesting that they are not necessarily comfortable with taking these vaccines, owed obviously to a number of narratives out there that has painted a negative picture around that. So rightly so, there are a number of issues going forward that must be tackled, and at the center of it is what will be the role of government, what will be the role of NGOs, and business as well, and in the end, making sure that access is indeed guaranteed to everybody, regardless of background, regardless of socio-economic positions.
43 after 7, Tshwane FM 93.6. Professor Barry Hanyane is with us. Prof, thank you so much for joining us at this point in time. And your word of wisdom to the listener at home before I let you go?
Yeah, well, once again, compliments to your listeners. May this station continue to grow and influence issues of public discourse. You guys have been doing a wonderful work. And let me wish all South Africans well, irrespective of where they are. Those who are coming back from holidays, those who have already begun working, those who are enjoying the last days of their holidays. May we observe the COVID-19 protocols. And of course, may we prosper despite living under this pandemic.
Interesting. 44 minutes after the hour, 7 o'clock, Professor Barry Hanyane with us on the line. Prof, thank you so much. May you have a lovely 2021.
Much appreciated, and a very good night to your listeners.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, man, this is exactly where we leave it, and we're jumping into the music space now, giving you great music as we make way for Pebble City Nights coming through between now and midnight. But thank you so much. I'm back again tomorrow, same time, same place. A further amazing evening to you all.
Log room 912.
Good morning, my favorite lady, Lena.
Hi, how are you?
How are you, madam?
Oh, good thing.
You make me to